Facebook. Preparing the live. We're now streaming. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday. I'm going to pour some tea here. I know that people I've been getting a lot of complaints. No one at all has complained. There's the live tea pouring so that you know that it's happening live. This isn't it's not tea done in post. You can't actually, it's an interesting fact. It is impossible to use CGI to imitate the pouring of tea out of a kettle into a cup. That they can do a lot of things these days. They can do deep fakes, but not tea. And so that's how you know that this is freshly poured hot tea. And we're going to start off with the sip as we always do. Ooh, that's lovely stuff. The tea today is, hold on, I got to click this video so that I can expand it and then mute it. All right, there we go. We're live. The tea today is candy cane. So it's vanilla and peppermint. I guess that's what a candy cane is. Delicious. Okay, can you guys believe that we're at the end of the summer? I was, I don't know what I was doing. I was working on something and I was like, oh, what's the date? I need to write that down. And then I looked and I'm like, holy crap, it's August 27th. That's like the end of summer. And it's interesting because I noticed that for me, there's always a bit of grief that shows up, kind of like mourning, maybe is a better way to describe it. MOURNING. For the good times of summer are leaving us and we're heading into the depth of winter and into the transition that is fall. As Bay and I were going around town yesterday, we were noticing leaves starting to turn colors just a little bit, starting to bronze a little bit, and just being with that. I do like fall. For me, fall is a time of new beginnings. You know, I think most of us, at least in the West, fall is the start of the school year. And so for so much of your youth and even your adolescence and then your young adulthood and then maybe your later adulthood, whatever it is, you know, starting fall is when you go back to school, go back to university, go back to college, whatever it was. And so it was a time of new beginnings, fresh starts, new clothes, right? You got to go get that. What's that dope gear that I'm going to wear to uni? I never talked that way, but new styles and layering. You get to layer. Fall and spring are the best seasons for clothing, I think. That's my opinion. And so it's like I'm just noticing all of that is in the space for me as I just go out into the day. I'm just looking at this mug. It says a dream is a wish your heart makes. Yeah, but a wish is a dream your brain makes, mug. So what up now? I defeated this mug. So the thing that's present for me to talk about this morning is this fascinating video I've been watching by Bonjour, Emmanuel. What do you do? Are you Emma for short? I don't think I don't know what you go by nickname wise or name wise. Anyhow, the video I've been watching this morning is this guy that I've been fascinated with for probably at least 10 years. And his name is Joel Bauer. I'm Joel Bauer from Passions for Profits. And Joel is that makes sense. Joel is a speaker. He's I believe, very well known in the circles that he speaks in. So those circles are like passion for profits. The idea is kind of like make money doing what you love, teaching people, selling people. And one of my favorite videos of him, the video that had me just be like, oh, this guy I can't get enough of. And he's also utterly repulsive to me. He's like a car accident. I can't look away from him. It's a video that is about 30 minutes of him effectively boasting about how he's unpacking his suitcase. He's just arrived in Australia. He's doing a presentation. He's speaking to like hundreds of thousands of people because he does that kind of thing. He's a very well regarded, sought after speaker. And it's just him talking and boasting about how he packs his suitcase. And it is, I can't look away from it. And I watch it anytime I have to pack, I usually put that on because it's hilarious to me. See this man so proud of like he gets so excited about the silliest things, like this jacket from Scotty Vest, SCOTTI Vest. I buy all my stuff from Scotty Vest. It's got 52 pockets in it. Look, I've got my Sony Vaio laptop computer I can put in this. Do you think, and he's just going off about like, do you think I've got a laptop computer in my jacket right now filled with presentation stuff? Guys, that's how powerful this is. Which is a weird thing that like he's holding the ability to put your laptop computer in your jacket is a powerful thing. Like, I've got a pocket. It'd be like someone pulling a lollipop out of a fanny pack and being like, that's how powerful. Did you know I had this lollipop on me? Anyhow, I highly recommend, first of all, if you're interested in something that's just unlike most of what you've watched, look up Joel Bauer, Bauer Suitcase, and just watch and be enthralled by this madman. That's my intention to bring that up is not to have a go at him. It's that every now and then I'll search for his name and just be like, what is that crazy kook up to? And what I found today was this video called How to Handle Every Objection and Get to the Sale, or something along those lines. I can't remember what it was. And Joel and this guy named Peng Jun, who I guess now they collaborate with, were basically working with an audience and sharing with them the approaches to overcome objections, overcome people's reasons for not being a yes to whatever you're providing. And they'd be like, okay, so if someone says it's too much, I would ask them compared to what? And then they'd kind of work through it. And Peng was sharing how, like, he was sharing with the audience, the thing about Joel, you go on his website and he's got all the objections you could have. And then for each of them, like a video. And in 30 seconds to a minute, he just like cuts to the heart of that and moves that out of the way. It's just amazing. And so watching this, what I was really struck by was that these are two masters, really truthfully, like masters at this, I don't know what we would call this, like the ability to break down or get past the objection to get to the sale. And my experience watching was like, this is what most of us feel like you have to be willing to do with people if you want them to be a yes to you. Like if you're going to be a businessman, if you want to make sales, you need to learn this approach, you need to blah, 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 blah. And they're really teaching people like how to do this and helping them see like, look how easy it is and blah, 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 blah. And what I was really struck by is how orthogonal, how like at cross purposes that is to what I believe is, well, the way of being and the approach I take to working with people through their objections. And so the way I hold it is that whatever objection someone had, first of all, if people don't want what you have, great, you're done. But if people do want what you have, but there's something in the way, right? Not, I don't want this, but I'm not sure how to say it, so I'm going to put an excuse in the way. The real place where it's like, I really want this, but I'm not sure, I don't know what to do. So that if people want what you have and something shows up, that something showing up it's not just here that it's showing up. That objection, that reason they can't do this thing today or whatever, is also showing up everywhere else in their life. The way that things get in the way of what these people say they want is the same thing that gets in their way of everything else that they say that they want. Mm-hmm. And it's just that currently what's showing up for them is this objection in the face of that thing they want called working with you. And so what I was struck by was this idea of like a 30-second video, cutting that away and then holding that kind of alongside this notion of, imagine if this was a thing that people have had get in their way for 30 years of their life, like a pattern, a well-worn thing that's been getting in their way for 30 years of their life. So we could relate to that. Like, it's just like, we just need to get them over that hump here today so that they can say yes to this program because it'll serve them. And that's fine if what you're doing is not really in the realm of transformation, right? Because When we're not operating in the realm of transformation, it doesn't matter so much if this is something happening everywhere else. All it matters is it's happening right here. Let's get you over it so that then blah, blah, blah. But in the work of coaching, and anyone that wants to be transformative in whatever they do, right? Transformation doesn't only have to be available for coaches. It can be available for anyone selling anything. You can create a transformational experience for people regardless of what you're doing. And for people that are committed to that, that objection showing up is really kind of like a sacred thing. It is the thing that's currently blocking these people in their lives. And so, yeah, we could sort of like get them over that hump right now, but it's just going to show up 2 weeks later, or then 2 weeks after that. And so life kind of starts to become about this game of whack-a-mole. People don't actually create a transformation where new possibilities are available. They just solve the problem that's showing up right now. And what I notice is that is not satisfying for most people when it comes to selling or to enrolling people in the possibility of their lives. And it's partly that leaves people feeling really icky about sales. That's contrasted with this sort of way of relating to what's showing up as like this beautiful opportunity. Like, holy crap, the thing showing up here is a thing showing up everywhere. And so if I were able to serve this person and have them see first that that's the case and got curious about it, right? So it's not that I'm right about it. It's more like, hey, let's take a look at this. What if this was the thing showing up everywhere? Let's get curious about that. And if we looked at it through that lens, now we're not in a conversation about getting you to hire me. We're in a conversation about how do we move the thing, like how do we resolve or overcome or transform the thing that seems to be stopping you everywhere, using the moment right now as a microcosm for it. If we could address it here, maybe we'd address it everywhere. And so from that place, 30 seconds is kind of laughable. Maybe it takes 30 seconds to like bat down your objection, but to really overcome 30 years of training is going to take a little more depth with that person, a little more connecting with the human on the other side, a little more really getting like, hey, tell me, what is this about? And how does this really occur to you? And as opposed to what are the set of words that I need to say to like sort of shock this person out of their objection so that then we can get them to the yes. I want to be clear in all of that Peng and Joel offer a service that is important for a lot of people and it is not without value. Frankly, if you looked at the amount of money people invest in them versus the amount of people that invest in people like me, those guys have the thing that the world wants. And that's okay. It's just that I think for a lot of people, and especially coaches who are really committed to transformation, that approach is really dissatisfying and it leaves a feeling of ick in their stomach because on some level they realize they're not serving people. At best, they can kind of contort their brain to this idea like, well, I'm kind of stepping over the thing. I feel like I'm kind of pushing them into the thing, but I'm pushing them into the thing that will then create the transformation. So it's kind of like this mental contortion that becomes, I'll do the icky thing now because I know that it's going to serve them in the long term, which on the one hand kind of makes sense, but on the other hand feels kind of gross. And it's like there's a place at which we're a bit out of integrity because we're doing an icky thing and we're not fully telling the client that. So fascinating. I've written a post about that. I really recommend you watch Joel Bauer unpacking a suitcase. And good morning, Mia. Good afternoon. Good evening, whatever it is in foggy London. And check out, if you're curious about this kind of thing, like Joel Bauer and Peng Joon, you can just search for both of those and I think you'll get that video. It's a fascinating thing to watch. And there is some really like, again, like what they're teaching has merit. It's just that what I'm interested in bringing the world and what I'm interested in supporting coaches to learn is an approach totally different to that. It may look similar, but who we're being underneath that is drastically different. And it's who we're being that changes our experience of life and has us love what we're doing versus be disgusted by what we're doing, even though the stuff on the surface, the actual doing of it, might feel very similar. I guess this is the part where I plug that that's all part of the course that I've put together and that is launching at the start of October. So if you're watching this or if you're watching this in passing or whatever, and you're like, I want to know more about that, let me know. I'm happy to talk at length about this. And do watch that video of Peng Joon and Joel Bauer. Well, let's get to the topic at hand. I'm going to have a sip of tea first. I'm going to notice that I'm talking quickly and I'm going to slow down. I was watching one of my videos and the piece of feedback I had for myself was, Adam, I really want to feel your breath more in your speaking. So that's what I'm going to practice doing. Today we have Sandra, and Sandra and I met actually in Costa Rica when we were at Rhythmia together. So this was the trip I took at the end of last year, where, hey, Heather, where I went to sit in ayahuasca ceremony. And Sandra and her partner, Chris, were two of the people that myself and my friend Brian, who I'd gone with, kind of became friends with very early on. And I believe we'd both sort of, or the three of us, I think Brian had seen the stars and moons by the end of the first night, but I think Sandra, Chris, and I had all had a bit of a very low level experience that first night. And I think we might have bonded like, oh yeah, it was kind of cool. I hope that there's more. There was, it blew the back of my head off as time went on, but I was kind of like, I think one of the bonding things. Let's get your camera on, Sandra. Let's get your mic on, and then we can confirm or reject what I just said. Hello.
Hello. I can definitely confirm what you just said.
Uh-huh. What was your experience that first, like that second day? I guess it'd be the second day. Anyhow, the day after the first night.
Both Chris and I noticed that we were kind of like, oh, it was not like a mediocre night, but it was a sort of underwhelming.
Yes.
And we thought, oh, I'm sure we'll get more the next few nights or whatever. But then during the integration class the following day is when we both kind of realized like, oh, actually, to your point of what you were just talking about, of like how we show up in one situation is maybe how we're showing up in other situations. And we both realized that the thing that we did the first night, it was actually what we were doing that was blocking the experience from coming to us. And it's exactly what we both do in our own life. And, we had different versions of it. My version was literally most of the first night. How you're mostly supposed to like close your eyes and just be in your own experience. I would open my eyes like every minute and be like, what's everybody else doing it? Am I doing it right? And I would hear noises and hear people having experiences, and I would get concerned about them. And then I'd wonder if maybe I was missing out on, like, there was FOMO, there was criticism, self-criticism, and doubt around like, I must be doing this whole experience wrong. And there was a lot of like that going on. And so I think I basically blocked it because I was not really present for my own experience because I was so worried about what was happening outside of me. So the next day I was like, oh, that's what I do.
I think I had that same kind of it was like a realization, but still disappointing. Like, oh, right, everyone's getting off on a rocket ship to the moon, and here I am left out once again, and I'm having this peaceful, relaxed experience, but I'm disappointed by that fact. Like, how many people would love to have peace and relaxation, and here you are disappointed. Yeah. So it was like, that was the medicine. Lame. All right, I can see the value of that medicine. All right, I got it. And then, of course, I remember the morning after the second night coming and sitting with you two, and then we were all like kind of smiling because I think that'd been a much more impactful night, and then things just kept picking up from there.
Yeah. I think I'm still, what is it, like 9 months later, and definitely still integrating, still extracting powerful lessons from that medicine. So super grateful.
Nice. Okay. Well, what are we going to talk about, Sandra?
Well, I thought today would be the perfect time to bring up a topic that I've become sort of obsessed with recently, and I feel like you're the perfect person to riff on it with, and to get some support on it with, and that's the idea of quantum leaps. I'm like really interested in the idea of kind of facilitating my own quantum leap, which, like, what does that even mean? I don't know, but I have some ideas about what I think it means for me and what I think it can mean for us as humans. And I'm becoming more and more fascinated by just like, obviously human potential, because that's a field we work in, but high performance and like what makes some people, just like improve and go in a great upward trajectory over time, consistency, blah, 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 determination, like love all that. And then I'm like, some people go from like level 1, instead of 2, 3, 4, 5, they just go to 11. And I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? Like, what was that little leap that you just took? And I'm kind of at the beginning of a journey where I'm like, what does that mean? How does it work? Who does it happen to? How can I be one of those people? I want to experience it myself. And then I want to figure out how to do that for other people. Obviously, how do you facilitate faster, deeper, more intense transformation for others? But right now I'm just kind of in this place where I'm like, I want that for myself. And I don't really know what it means. And I don't really know how to make it happen, but I'm like really wanting to lean into it. My coach recommended a book. Now I forget the author, but it's called The Quantum Leap Strategy. It's like the tiniest little like pamphlet-y book. And then there's a sequel to it that it's called like U Squared or something. So those are
sexy titles.
Sitting on my nightstand as like the beginning to symbolically mark the chapter of this quantum leap exploration. But beyond that, I haven't really done much other than think about it a lot. And yeah, you seem like someone who's like maybe plays in that world on that level. So I'm like, let's go there.
Let's find out. So, okay, so there's like I guess it sounds more like there's this notion of a quantum leap, and there's sort of you having seen people where it occurs like they kind of went from a 1 to a 50 or a 10 or 100 or whatever the number is, as opposed to like the linear progression. And you're like, ooh, I want that. Is that more or less kind of where we're starting from?
Yeah.
Got it. So how come? Like since you don't know what it would actually look like or what your version of a quantum leap would be like, what is it about that appeals to you, that has you want it?
I think a lot of it has to do with my history, and just the kind of person I am and the things that I've gone through. Like my journey largely has been one of getting out of my own way, letting go of holding back. Like I was the perfectionist, the people pleaser, the like self-doubt, basically all the things that I've worked through that I very much help my clients with are the kinds of things that slow you down.
Right.
Which, like, one of my breakthroughs at Rhythmia was, it's okay. Like, it's okay that I go at my own pace. Like one of the most amazing visions I had was, briefly, I was on a hospital bed, like one of those psychic surgery situations. And then Mother Ayahuasca showed up by my bedside. She was this like 25-year-old, short, brown-haired, sassy doctor lady in a lab coat. And she was like, come with me, I have something to show you. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm getting surgery right now. Like maybe I should not move. She's like, no, you can leave your body there. It's fine, come with me. I was like, okay. So I went with her and she took me on a tour of my soul, which was a house. It was like a real estate, like spec house or something. And she was like, each one of these rooms represents a part of your soul, one of the ways where you've judged yourself in the past. And one of the rooms, I won't go into the whole thing, but one of the rooms was the room where I judged myself for taking too long. Like that's always been one of my big limiting beliefs and stories, like always worried that other people are bored or they think I'm boring because I'm taking too long, like everything is too slow, whatever. So she showed me that like, that's okay. It's actually one of your superpowers if you just own it, because one of your superpowers is that you slow down time for people. You can like slow it down to this place where they can be really present. So like stop judging yourself for taking too long and know that it's okay. So like all of that, I feel like I've healed some of that, but now I'm also kind of like, because part of my journey is that I have taken sort of the longer, slower, more gentle route in a lot of ways. Now I'm like, I've healed so much of that. And now I'm like, I'm kind of ready to go faster. And I almost want to be like, not just go faster, but I want to kind of like make up for lost time a little bit. Because I feel like there's so much that I've learned and wisdom and strength that I've gotten in healing. But now I'm like, all right, it's effing go time. Like I feel like a racehorse that's been standing at their freaking starting line for like a couple of decades. And I'm like, just open the gate. Like,
right.
I'm ready. I've been training for this my whole life. Like, let me go. So I think there's a little bit of that. There's an eagerness, there's a really deep curiosity of like, I feel like I know what I'm capable of right now here in this moment, but I'm like, what am I capable of if I go faster and deeper and, cut out the distraction and the BS and just like laser focus more.
So, well, I'm curious, like, what would you focus on? What would you, because it's kind of like if we had someone who was walking around in a circle and they're like, you know what, I take too long and I've learned to kind of like accept that and find it like my superpower. But now I want to go faster and make up for lost time. And so we like taught them how to like build sick thigh muscles and they could really like, they had the proper running technique and all of that. But what's going to happen is now they're going to run around in that circle faster. So they're moving faster, which might satisfy them, but they're not moving anywhere in particular. So I'm curious, where is it that you just want to have an experience of moving faster, or is there a place you want to actually move to?
Great question. Probably a little
been
bit
working on them.
Like definitely the bigger why is the where I want to go, but there is also just a curiosity of like, what would it feel like to be a person that moves fast? I've never really known what that's like, and I think it would just be fun to be like I would consider myself a high achiever, but I think it'd be fun to be a high achiever who can like get shit done more quickly. But the real why is like, it's kind of always a parallel twofold path for me. It's my own personal development and rising up. But then there's always the impact that I want to have, and the two are always related. It's like, I want to go higher so that I can bring as many other people up to whatever their higher level is as well. But I also feel like in order for me to even have the consciousness to be able to do that, I need to be operating on a higher level and always challenging myself to go to whatever the next level is, and be in a really healthy, grounded place. So I don't know, to the why is like facilitating the up leveling and transformation of consciousness on the planet one, however many souls at a time as I can, but including my own. And like, I want to feel so energized, so lit up, so passionate, so determined, so on purpose as much of the time as possible, so that I can help every single other human, but as many of the other humans in my midst find whatever their version is of that and come play on the same level.
Okay, well, so I get like, I can really feel the, well, one thing I'm really present to is your passion, the passion that you are. I can feel it in the torrent of words that you're, like your words are fast. I notice your energy is fast in this moment, and there's like a lot there. Your bandwidth in expressing this is wide, which is awesome. I love that. I can feel the passion. And right now, what I'm present to is we have a concept of something, but we don't have an implementation of it. So it'd be like if the government was like, Sandra, we want to be the best we can be. And you'd be like, fucking cool. Great goal. I'm so glad you didn't tell me like mediocre. But how do we know if they're moving towards that or not? And so I'm curious, like, there's a couple things I'll just put on the table. You can speak to or answer whatever you like. I'm curious what your day-to-day experience of being what you're talking about is. Like, do you feel like you're moving quick, taking on a lot of stuff, whatever, doing a quantum leap? And I'm also curious, like, how would we know if you were actually quantum leaping or not? You can answer either of those or a totally different thing.
Yeah, I feel like I'll answer the how would we know first, and then what is the experience on the day-to-day. I think how would I know? I would probably know, because I think I would just feel it. I'm a feeler. I'm an empath. I'm very like, that's my whole world is just how everything feels. So I feel like I would feel it pretty quickly if I got there. My husband hears me say things a lot like, I feel like I just released another layer of blah blah blah. I'll be like sitting in the hot tub or something. He's like, what? What just happened? Or I feel like I just clicked into this next phase of something. And he's like, so I think I would feel it, but what it would look like is, I think the tangible outcome or visible results would be probably something to do with visibility and impact in terms of like just actual number of humans. You know, like right now, I would say I have the capacity and the bandwidth to reach, you know, a respectable amount of people, but nothing groundbreaking. I'm not like on TV. I'm not, you know, Joe Rogan. I don't have a massive audience. I've got my little like hundreds or thousands of people here and there. But so I feel like if I was really playing at that higher level, I would just naturally be reaching, you know, there's strategic stuff and list building and whatever, get that
Right.
10K on Instagram. But like, I think there's a, like, if I was kind of vibrating at that higher level or performing at that higher level, I think naturally more people would either find me or tell other people about me, and they would come, you know, just like energetically, there'd be a bigger reach.
Got it.
Yeah. And I would think and hope that probably the people that I did work with, either one-on-one clients or my group programs or whatever, I would be expecting them to be getting results, bigger results and faster. And same thing, kind of like having such raving success stories that they can't help but tell everyone they know.
Yeah.
Kind of a situation.
Okay, got it. So two parts. How would you know if you got there? You would feel it. It'd be a felt experience. And then what would actually be occurring in your life? Greater visibility, greater impact, more people would find their way to you, and your clients would be creating more results.
Killing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I have an assertion, but before I provide it, I want to like check something out with you. So let's say that you had someone who was like, Sandra, I want to be the best runner in the world, the best 100-meter sprinter. And you were like, okay, great. How will we know if you got there? And they're like, I feel like I would just feel it. Like I would have a sense that I was the best 100-meter sprinter.
Yeah.
What do you have for that person?
I would ask them what they care about, just how their own experience of feeling like they're the best runner, or if they want to actually be measurably the best runner compared to other people. And then I would check in what was important and why, and then look at, because if they're like the slowest runner in the world, but they feel like the best runner in the world, and that's just what makes them feel happy, and that's just like an identity that they want to adopt, and it's not hurting anyone, and they're just like running through the forest feeling free, great, you know. But if they're actually trying to like win the Olympics or something, then it would be a very different conversation about, let's actually look at your tangible results and break it down and reverse engineer it and figure out how to get there.
Nice.
But I mean, to me, so much of transformational work too is about identity and is our perception of ourselves. And not that we want to walk around being completely delusional, thinking we're like, you know, the king of an island or something, when we're really not. But like, can you walk around feeling like a king and acting like somebody who holds themselves in high regard? Of course, you know. So it's like the not perception of how other people see you, but just the, I don't know, that's like a whole nother rabbit hole there. But yeah, I think that's how I would go with that.
Got it. So it sounds like on the one hand, we'd have, the question, is it just a way of feeling that this person wants to have, or is there like an actual tangible result? And if it's a way of feeling, great. It may not have any bearing on objective reality. They may not have any kind of impact from feeling this way, but we could maybe have some way of supporting them to like, how can you relate to yourself? How can you sort of think about this in such a way that you create the feeling for yourself of, right, and then give them that. So, okay, I get that. So then for you, like, is this really just rooted in a feeling of moving fast, like a desire to feel like you're quantum leaping, or is there actually some manifestation of having achieved that you're really like, that's what I want? Like, I want to feel this way, but I want to have some tangible impact of creating this in the world too.
Definitely both.
Okay. So where should we put our attention, do you think?
Probably on the actual tangible results, because I think the feeling world is like kind of my comfort zone, and I could hang out there all day, and I think I'm pretty clear on how I want to feel, and I think I'll recognize it when it arrives or when it starts to arrive. Whereas the tangible side, like, I have a lot of big goals and dreams, but I haven't really thought too clearly about like, what does it actually mean to quantum leap? Like, what are we talking about? So that's why it definitely interests me right now.
Cool. Yeah, and I've noticed that going for like being committed to a certain result does not always equate to feeling a certain way. So like that person who's like, I want to be the fastest runner is going to train a bunch and probably get a bunch of, if they're tangibly wanting to win the Olympics, they're going to get feedback, they're going to see their time. And there's a lot of points along the way where even though they're moving towards tangibly being the fastest runner on the planet, they're going to get feedback and feel like a slug and be like, oh my God, like I'm so slow. I'm slower yet today than I was yesterday. Like I'm going back. How they feel is going to be a different thing rather than the experience, the actual thing they're creating. Would that be fair? Is that your experience too?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. That's the assertion that I wanted to make, but I wanted to like really check it out with you rather than just put something on the table. So that's been my experience too, is if we go for the feeling, then this may happen, but it may not. Whereas if we go for this, we may feel that way more, less, we don't know, but we can definitely create the tangible result. Mm. So what would be an example of like when you imagine yourself like blowing past, the linear, going from where you are to where you want to be, like how would we tangibly know that you'd created a quantum leap in terms of your results?
I think so the first things that come to mind are just kind of like some of the big dreams and goals that I've had for a long time, but that in my mind, they're the kinds of goals where I'm like, they like bucket list stuff that I get really excited about, but I'm also not attached to. Like one of them is being on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, for example. And I'm like, I get so excited about the idea anytime I think about it, but I'm also not attached to it. Like if it never happened, I wouldn't be heartbroken at all. I just think it's a really fun idea to be working towards something like that or something better. Yeah. But in my head, something like being on Oprah or, we're talking about like best-selling books and stuff like that. In my head, that's always like this really far away thing where I'm like, I'm going to be doing all this work on myself and my business or whatever here and now. And then one day, like decades down the road, maybe that'll happen. And I think maybe a quantum leap looks like taking some of those goals and dreams that seem like they seem possible. I think I'm at a place where I feel so much conviction and just fun and like playfulness around some of my big goals that I would have no problem standing on top of a mountaintop and screaming out like the goals. Like I'm not afraid to share it because I don't really care what anybody thinks. I'm like, I just think it's fun to work towards it. And if you think it's ridiculous, that's fine.
What are you afraid about them?
About those goals?
Sure.
Probably the idea of like, who do I have to become in order to get to that place? Because like in the timeline in my head, because it's long, it kind of feels safe. I'm like, oh, I'm sure I'll get to that place within myself, identity wise and whatever in 10 or 20 years. But the idea of like collapsing the timeline feels like the quantum leap. And that feels more scary because I'm like getting to a place where I become that kind of person sounds like it might be a lot of work. I'm like, and I'm somebody who like, again, because I work kind of slowly and I'm very sensitive and I'm an introvert and stuff, like there are a lot of ways where I keep myself very comfortable and I'm like a little bit scared of that sounds like it would be a lot of work, which is interesting to hear myself say a lot because I'm also like really determined and I love working hard. I love what I could do and I can work on it all day, but there is like my own pace and maybe some of those goals would require things that are like just so far out of my comfort zone or like so much more work that I think that I'm willing to put in right now. I'm not sure. I don't feel afraid of sharing those dreams and risking failure because I really genuinely like there's a lot of other things where I care what people think, but I like people knowing that I want to be on Oprah and then risking not ever having it happen, like couldn't care less about that.
What is the risk there? Because what I'm present to is there's a lovely idea of being on Oprah without any attachment to being on Oprah. And what I notice is not there is like a commitment to be like a commitment to make it happen. It's more like it would be so cool if, but I'm okay if not. And so I'm curious, like, what is the risk? It doesn't occur like there's much stakes there.
It feels almost like it's one of those like vanity goals that's kind of symbolic of having reached a certain place within my field or my industry where I could be the kind of person who would get to be invited to be on Oprah. But it's like that actual goal maybe isn't what's most important to me. So I feel like my commitment, like I don't feel super drawn to like spend the next 5 or 10 years doing all the things one would need to do to become the kind of person to be on Oprah. I would rather focus on the things that I care the most about, like having an impact and the ways that I want to impact people and figuring out how to have a bigger reach so that I can help more people, and, you know, doing all my work myself so I can heal more so that I can help other people heal more, all of that stuff. Whereas the Oprah goal is like more like a fun vanity thing.
Okay. So is there a different measure of what a quantum leap would be that we should look at, given that that's just sort of like a fun vanity kind of thing?
I'm sure there is, and I would love to find it, because I know in my head setting those kinds of goals, the more tangible ones, and the further away ones, that feels easier to me. Like it's easy to sit around and visualize about that. A lot of times what's harder for me is to see what I really want in the short term. Like even trying to picture where I'd like to be in 6 months or in a year, I have a harder time like actually seeing the pictures in my head. What would be the measure of a quantum leap in even like in the next year or year and a half or so? I think part of what's coming up is the idea that to be operating at a place where I can legit reach more people, and not just like, you know, an influencer with however many followers, but like reaching people in an actual meaningful way that's actually impacting their lives. I think there's something around like realizing that I can't do it by myself. I need probably a lot more support that I have just in terms of actual team. And there's definitely some fear. Like I've had everything from one assistant to like one assistant and a team of 3 coaches. Right now I have one assistant and one assistant coach. But even like when I had my team of 4, it was still pretty easy. Like it was very casual, you know? And I feel like if I'm talking about actually impacting way more people on a much deeper level, like soon, that's going to probably require like more serious team situation, which I think part of what scares me about that is that also requires like being able to pay a team at that level very consistently. And the idea of taking, you know, I was always back in the early days of starting this business, I was like, I'm going to be a solopreneur forever. I don't want to have employees. Like I want to be free. I just want to work on my laptop on beaches, you know, And then it was only like maybe 3 or 4 years ago where I was like, oh wait, if I really want to have an impact, like I can't be doing all my own admin. Like I've got to have a team. And now I'm kind of at this place too, where I'm like, you know, really reaching bigger audiences means things like having people to run your Facebook ads and having amazing client service and happiness people, so that I'm like, I think part of what I've been present to recently is like, to go back to your day-to-day, like what am I doing day-to-day question? Like I'm spending a little bit of time in my zone of genius and probably most of my time in my zones of excellence or competence, to give a shout out to the Big Leap book. There's probably a lot of things that would need to come off my plate and go into the hands of a very trusted team. And I would need to step into a lot more leadership and also be ready to really like be supporting a team, not just energetically and as a leader, but financially. And I think that really scares me too. I hadn't actually thought of that until right now.
I want to ask you a question about one thing I just noticed in the space. So I've heard you mention like 2 times how you're like slower, or you can be slow. But what I'm struck by is how fast you're speaking. And I'm really curious about that. Like, are you aware of that, first of all?
I'm aware that when I get very excited, I was saying this to a client yesterday. I was like, I kept being like, I apologize. I am like spitting at the screen right now and basically yelling at you because I'm so excited. We were talking about manifestation, and that's one of the things that gets me the most excited. Manifestation, mindset, money stuff, money mindset stuff. So I was like, I definitely, when I talk or when I get excited, volume goes up and the speed picks up. Yeah, talking is not one of the things that happens slowly. It's more like getting into action and processing information. I'm definitely like an internal processor, and I tend to be a slower processor, which was something I always judged myself for. Like I always was worried that people would think, like somebody would say something and I would be sitting there wishing I had like a quick witty comeback. But I was a person that's like, I'm going to go home and think about this overnight, and then tomorrow I'll email you a response, you know, because I was just like, I don't have that like fast twitch fiber response system in my brain. So I think I process information slowly, but when I'm excited, I talk fast. Definitely.
Got it. So like one of the things you can distinguish is when you get excited, you talk fast.
Yeah.
And is that what, like, if you slow down and just take a breath and check in with yourself, is that what has you speaking quickly right now?
Probably to some degree.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Probably just like a searching, like looking for what feels like testing out, like, does this feel true? So I'm kind of like wanting to find the thing.
Nice.
In each moment. Because again, this is one of those, it's such a topic where I'm like, I feel like I know what I want, but I also don't really know what I want, but I know that I want it. And so
what's scary about that?
Eager to like put my finger on some clarity.
Yeah, I really, thanks for saying that, Sandra. I really get that. Like the experience I have is kind of like my dog when he has 5 toys out and he's like, ha, 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 like,
yeah.
Ah.
I want all of them.
And my dog's the greatest dog in the known universe, so that's a high compliment.
Ooh.
Apologize if me comparing you to a dog in any way landed as anything but like the greatest compliment someone could get. Great. So what I heard you say was like there's a little bit of kind of I can't remember the words you used, something to the effect of like you know you want something, but you don't actually know what it is, but you know that you want it. Mm. What is the experience that creates internally?
It's kind of a mix of frustration and excitement. Like on the one hand, I've learned to love, well, I've always loved surprises, but I've learned to really embrace the unknown because I like just the mystery of things, and I like seeing everything as a game or an adventure. So I like not knowing. It's exciting to me, but at the same time, there's a little bit of like, maybe a little bit of, I feel like I should know by now, or which is probably a whisper of old self-judgment tendencies coming up of, you know, oh, there's the same one. You're too slow. You're taking too long. You're taking too long to figure it out, you know?
Right.
But a little bit of also just like, you know, like want to get like getting on with it.
Totally.
Like when I spend most of my day dancing in the space of human potential and constantly looking at what incredibly amazing things humans are capable of when we get out of our own way and when we believe in ourselves, and like seeing it, you know, in so many other people, especially in clients who are newer to personal development work, I'm just like, like I look at them and I just see like potential popping out of every cell in their body, you know, and it gets me so excited about just what we collectively are capable of.
Yeah.
But then it also has me look back at myself and be like, cool, so what are you doing about your own potential?
Right. And then when that lens gets turned back this way, like I hear in that question, not so much like a question that opens up possibility, but more like a statement of judgment, or like a, you know, it's more rhetorical rather than like, oh, what am I? And what would I love to? So when that sort of rhetorical, like almost judgmental statement comes at you, what's the, you know, like the knee-jerk kind of response? Oh shit, that's what am I doing? Then what do you then know to do, or know yourself reliable to do in response to that?
Mm. When I come at it, when I notice that I'm coming at it with a little bit of the judgmental.
Well, like the danger here is now you give me like a really beautiful coachy kind of answer. And I'm more curious about like just sort of, if someone says, Adam, you're arrogant, I know that the thing for me to do is to like, fuck, you're right. I'll take a look on there's like all of this stuff that I'm automatically going to do. It's like a great hook for me. For anyone that's watching, if you ever want to hook me, you say, Adam, you're unwilling to look at yourself. And I will immediately drop whatever I'm doing. Anything you've done wrong, I will stop and I'll be like, okay, let me do all the work that's over here for me to do. I'm really reliable from my fear to do that, because the last thing I want to be is the guy that's like the blind prophet loudly leading people. Mm. So I'm kind of curious, like, it sounds like there's a bit of it's like a button, like, hey, what are you doing? You're already too far behind. You're already here. Like, you're already all of that stuff. What do you know is like just sort of an automatic, like, fuck, the response that comes from that?
The two things that are coming up, one is a time thing. Like, I've been in this phase recently where I'm like really wanting to kind of change my relationship with time, and like get caught up in less of the unimportant stuff and really like get better at just kind of laser focusing. Yep. And being less distracted by little things. Like, the feeling when you make a to-do list and you're like, okay, I'm going to do all the easy shit first. And then you feel so productive and really proud of yourself. And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, I didn't do any of the stuff that actually matters.
Yeah,
but I was like patting myself on the back for being so productive. So there's a little bit of like wanting to change my relationship with time that way. And then the other thing that's coming up was, what was it? It was something about feeling uncomfortable. Hold on, it's like about to slip out of my brain.
Tons of time.
So like, if I'm looking at myself and saying like, what are you doing about your own potential? I don't know. The question that's coming up for me now, though, when I try to remember what I was thinking, was something like how uncomfortable are you willing to get?
Okay.
Which could mean a lot of different things.
Well, so let's just play it out. Like, imagine I was like, hey, Sandra, you're wasting your time. Time's running out. I'm not saying this is true. Just imagine though, like, time's running out and like, you're not doing what you should be doing to move forward at the rate you should be moving forward. Mm. What then does that have sort of like you almost want to go and do immediately?
The first thing that came to mind was sign up for an NLP training. Interestingly enough, just because in my mind, learning a skill like NLP is a way to get kind of master or start to master the art of facilitating deeper, faster transformation in others, but also in your own mind.
So great answer. And you're doing great, by the way. Really, like, I also want to acknowledge, like, I feel a bit of a slowing down in your being as we're going into this. So I beautiful work. So it kind of occurs like go to take an NLP training because that'll allow me to go faster in a way, or more efficient, which is a cooler way of saying faster in a way, right? Yeah. Would that be fair? Yeah. That's like the Silicon Valley. I want to be efficient, not fast. Yeah. I get it. You're using codes. So that wasn't you I was denigrating. That was the straw man Silicon Valley CEO that I just created those. Yeah. Okay, good. So it sounds like when that, like, hey, time's passing you by, or, whatever that stimulation is, I'm just going to open this window now. Whenever that shows up, that part of the reactive thing to do is to like go fast, speed up, so that at least, if the first 40 years or however old you are were too slow, we'll make up for it on the back end. Is that how it occurs?
To a degree, probably, yeah.
Okay. When you say to a degree, like what's the part that we're not capturing in that or feels off?
There was another thing that popped up as you were talking that I think is also very true for me, which is I was thinking about like, what are the things that I'm doing that are taking up my time that aren't things that I need to be doing, that are
Right.
therefore like creating some drag as I'm trying to move forward. And there's definitely like a fear of handing things off or delegating things that, even though I can absolutely delegate, and the other person, you know, whether it's somebody on my team or whoever that I'm asking for support, could absolutely say no, of course. But there's this like,
Oh, what a time to freeze.
oh,
There we go. You just came back. That was
back.
exciting. Yeah.
Whenever I freeze on calls, I start interpretive dancing.
Same. Yeah, same. Just let me know when you see my funky grooves and then we'll come back to it. Yeah. So what are the things that are dragging behind? What can I let go of?
There's a fear of like delegating things to somebody who I'm afraid will think that the thing that I'm delegating to them is like a boring task or something where there's like a fear of, it's so interesting because it sounds so stupid when I say it out loud, but like not wanting to give a task to somebody on my team, even though like I don't need to be the one to do it, but I'm like, oh, but then they're going to think that I think I'm like better than this task. Therefore,
why wouldn't you give them the task? What's the cost of giving them that task?
It's like they might think it's boring, or they might feel burdened, or they might think like, oh, your time is so important that you can't do this little thing and my time isn't important, so I have to do this, you know, which is very silly when you have a team that you're literally paying to do things that are things that you want to not be doing.
Yeah, but it also makes sense to me. And it sounds like, so what I heard you say is, as we were talking about this, one of the places you look is, so there's like speed up, take an LP or take that speed reading course that Jim Quick teaches, or, you know, whatever the thing is. Yeah. And then there's also, and I've got a parachute, so how can I remove stuff from the parachute? And then as you look to that, there's like another layer of stuff in the way. But it kind of seems like those are both versions of like the same kind of underlying thing, which is I'm not going fast enough. So how can I, or efficiently or whatever, how can I be more? Take away the parachute, soup up the engine, but both kind of the same flavor, more or less. Is that, I really want to have you check my feet on this. Like, is that how it kind of occurs for you?
Yeah, I would say so.
Got it. So, well, first, from this like altitude, this kind of distinguished place where we're not looking so much at what's happening in the weeds, but just like, oh, there's like this, I got to go faster. Like, what do you notice about this as we look at it?
It's I'm feeling like one of those lovely paradoxes about living in this world, or this world that we both live in, of like fully accepting that it's okay to go at the pace that I'm going and not judging it. So like letting go of judgment of being too slow, aka not being enough. Mm-hmm. And like really truly doing my best to not judge it, or to release judgment when it comes up, and also giving myself permission to desire to go faster, but to not have the desire become a judgment of the fact that I'm not going fast enough. So it's like this both full acceptance and total commitment to the desire, which is to go faster, but like to not waste my time judging myself for not going fast enough while I'm working on going faster. That's kind of what comes up at the higher level.
Got it. Okay, great. Good noticing. Here's what I notice. So I notice a lot of your attention is on velocity as opposed to destination. So it's like, oh, I want to go faster, which is about, but towards what? Well, we have a concept, but with the concept, all we can really do is like, well, I think I'm feel like I'm moving faster. So that becomes our gauge, how we feel moment by moment. Which does keep you safe from the risk of drawing a line in the sand and saying like, this result I'm going to create. And then like, oh, fuck, the speedometer coupled with the direction, like the distance I've traveled shows me I'm going slow. It forces you to confront that thing. Mm. So it's almost like my experience is a bit of, we could call it resistance or inability or avoidance, or there's like a not present tangibility to where you're going. And so without that, where we're left is, oh, I want it to be okay for me to slow down, which is great, but you're still walking in a circle. Or I also want to be okay with the desire to speed up, which is cool too, but now you're walking in the circle faster. And where we're left is in a circle, being okay with how fast we go around in that circle, but not actually moving towards any particular thing. Mm. How does that sit with you?
I like that. It's almost like getting a little like lost in the process and analyzing it and losing sight of what the actual desire and destination is. Whereas like, if I could like, I'm picturing, I don't know anything about airplanes or control panels, but I'm picturing like on a control panel, like locking in on the coordinates of this is the end goal. And like, still, I'm such a believer in like knowing what you want, being really clear on why you want it and moving towards it, and then being open to things changing. And, you're allowed to change your mind about what you want or whatever, but like locking in on the coordinates of that thing and just being like, let's just fucking go. And like, not, yes, looking at strategies and what can I do to, delegate more and step more into leadership and work on my mindset and all that kind of stuff, like embrace the process and embrace the hows, but ultimately be so laser focused on just, this is where I'm going and this is why it's so meaningful, and like, just like laser. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm curious, do your clients have a clear 1-year goal that they're working towards?
Most of them, probably yes.
Probably yes, most of them?
Most of them, yeah.
Like that you are supporting them with, and they're like, here's where I'm at, this is how it's going?
Yeah. Okay. But I don't want to say 100% at all, because I'm sure for some of them, they're working on several different areas and very focused on the short term. Like they're in a job transition where they're kind of like, we'll look at the big picture and dream life and all of that, but really all they care about right now is getting through this job transition phase. So it's like, we're mostly focused on like the 3 to 6 month.
Okay. And do you have a 3 to 6, like this is where I want to be in 3 to 6 months?
Yes.
Okay. What is that?
A lot of it is revenue milestones.
Okay. And are those revenue milestones a reflection of like a milestone that would be a quantum leap, or are they more like what's a predictable, like here's what I'm pretty sure I can generate kind of milestone?
I typically do like a good, better, best.
Got it. And what are you actually committed to out of those 3 when you do that?
I would love to say I'm committed to the best, but I'm realistically, like energetically, probably committed to somewhere between the good and the better.
And if you took away all of those squirmy words, like realistically, probably, et cetera, what actually would you say? If you just looked at your actions and who you're being about those goals, which one would you say you're actually committed to?
Probably only they're filling in with the probablys again.
Nice.
I'm just like, oh, it's so interesting because in my mind, I'm like, I can commit to the best goal, but my actions would say, if anybody like knew all of the numbers and knew what I did every single minute of every day, they'd be like, you're committed to good.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks for owning that. I felt that like that was a little, or at least it occurred a little edgy just to own that fact.
Yeah.
So first of all, I acknowledge you, Sandra, for having goals, right? Sometimes I work with, especially coaches, this can be really common in the coaching profession, where it's like, all they want is to feel a certain way, which is risky at best, is a little rickety, because how I feel tomorrow is often unrelated to what's going on in my life. And it's like, oh, I hope it's sunny tomorrow. not impossible to do stuff to change that, but it's just shifting sand. And so it's great that you have goals. And it sounds like the game is kind of like you've got realistic goals that won't call you forward to create a shift in who you be. You're probably going to achieve them, I'm guessing, and it won't require much of a breakthrough nor much of a breakdown in getting there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we've got are these, like, we could call them impossible goals or like aspirational goals, which are like out there. They're the quantum leapy ones, but there's zero commitment towards them. You're pretty unattached. And it's like, if it happens, that's cool. And then, but there's not anything that's going to like pull you towards it other than it just being a cool idea. Does that sound about right, how I've laid it out?
Yeah. And
Okay.
even just like, I mean, even just when you said there's no commitment, I was kind of like, fuck, that's true.
Totally.
Even just playing in the zone of like, I'm exploring what a quantum leap looks like, in a way could be a very convenient excuse to be not being in the commitment of going after those good, better, best goals.
100%.
Like the version of me that has quantum leaped and is slaying those goals, not just, revenue, impact, audience, like even just my own like fitness and whatever goals, like the version of me that is achieving those things is not sitting around being like, what does a quantum leap look like?
Right.
There's no time for that shit.
She's got stuff she has to do because she's like, I'm not going to make my commitment. Fuck. And stuff's going to fall apart because you're like, I can't keep this way of getting there is bankrupt. And it's in that breakdown that the breakthrough can be created.
Yeah.
My wife and I run this course called The Forge, and it's coaches and leaders. And this isn't a pitch, don't worry. But what happens is that coaches come into it and they have these grand visions and they're like, I want to do this thing. And so what happened last year was like, we have a project for each of you to succeed on. The project is come to this retreat we're running in Costa Rica. There's no cost to you other than your plane ticket there and the time. Everything else is covered. You got to get yourself there. That's outside of the realm of possibility for most of those people. It's not predictable. It was unpredictable they'd come into the Forge, and it's even less predictable that they're going to just like create that in their life. And as you can imagine, people are like, I'd really like to, but now's not the time. I just really care about my partner and I want to spend as much, all of the reasons and the excuses. And so our work was to get them enrolled in that and committed to being there, which then drove up all of their shit. Mm-hmm. And for the people that came, created a massive breakthrough because they had to create a breakthrough to get there. It was otherwise unpredictable. They didn't have the money. One woman came from India to spend 3 days in Costa Rica. That's ridiculous. I wouldn't ask that of anyone. She's crazy. And you can imagine, right? To get there, she had to show up differently in her life. That's the power of really creating the being of commitment and then acting from it towards that best or even better goal, like whatever the quantum leap version is. So what do you hear for yourself in all of those words I just uttered?
It was reminding me of kind of the first big leap that I took in terms of trusting myself and making a commitment, which not surprisingly was an investment that I made in my own personal development back in the day in 2011. The coach training school I was going to had a leadership program. And it was one of those things where I didn't even really know that much about the program. I just felt this click inside myself where I was like, you have to be there. Like you have to make it happen. Yes. But then I looked at all the logistics and I was like, like it was a 14K program, which for me back then was like, I was like, where the hell am I going to find $14,000? And
don't have an envelope with 14K sitting in it.
Like, I have to do it. And I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I have to do it. And I just fucking committed to it. And then I figured it out. Of course, I got resourceful. I talked to the, program advisor. She broke it down into like so many different payments. I moved to a cheaper apartment, which ended up being better, amazingly. Lowered my expenses, like did a bunch of random, totally figured it out. And now I've done that many times before in terms of coming up with investments for coaches and mentors and things. But I'm like, where else have I done that? Like that kind of a commitment where it's just like stake in the ground. This is happening. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. And
I noticed your voice got a little waver in it there. Was there anything showing up for you as you were looking at that, or is it just a quirk of the voice?
I like the idea of it being a waiver, so I'm going to go with that, whether it was or not, because it is. This is, I mean, this work is so important to me, and it's, I mean, there's so many different whys for why it's important.
Sandra comes back. There we go. You're back.
Okay, you're getting on board with the interpretive dance.
We're back now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I saw that a colleague of mine posted a meme the other day. It was like a squirrel like doing this, and the caption said something like, "People have stopped coming to me with requests or questions because I always just answer them in interpretive dance." Or something. And I was like, very nice.
You're cool, squirrel.
Somebody starts like a debate with you online, and you just start interpretive dancing every time, they're probably gonna let it go. This work is so important to me for so many different reasons, and like there's no reason why I wouldn't commit like a no shit commitment. Commit to, whatever I determine to be the marker of the quantum leap, whether it's a revenue goal or an impact goal or an audience goal or I like revenue goals just because it's much easier to track than impact.
Totally.
Number of souls you have transformed. I'm like, how do you measure that?
Right. And then we get to be in the, well, I'll feel a certain way. And then, oh, well, yeah, exactly. I hope I feel that way.
So numbers are just easier, but yeah, it's so funny too, because this is like something that I talk to my clients about all the time in terms of really making the energetic commitment, making a decision. That's just a decision. It's like period, end of story. There is no longer any question about this. It's just a decision has been made.
Yeah.
Certain things like the timeline or maybe the how or whatever will be determined, but the commitment is just like stake in the ground. And I'm like, I don't know that I've actually done that about this.
Yeah, nice. So what do you see? Great distinguishing, really great awareness. What do you see what do you see to practice coming out of this, to put into action?
There's something around like acting like I talk a lot about like, showing up as the CEO, kind of like badass boss babe CEO version of me. That's, the 5 years from now has laid all the goals as being on the shows and all that kind of stuff. Like, how do I show up as that version of myself today? And I do a lot of that in terms of mindset, but I don't know that I do a lot of that in terms of my action. Like especially being a mindset coach, I'm so obsessed with all of the identity work and how we talk to ourselves. And I feel like I'm getting pretty good at all of that, but I don't know that it's translating into what I actually do all day, And so I think the practical aspect of this is like getting really honest with myself about what am I actually doing all day, and what of all of those things needs to change. And it might look really simple, like there's just a lot of perhaps simplifying that needs to happen, and a lot more delegating that needs to happen, and a lot more just taking my own time more seriously, I think.
Well, would it serve you? Because I noticed that's not to take away from it, but it's kind of like until we have a thing we're going towards, all of the stuff, like, it's like, oh, my car, I notice I'm not choosing to go to Florida or California. Maybe what I'll do is I'll start to really clean out my carburetor. Yeah, but why? Where are you going? Do we even need a car to get there? And so would it serve you to like really get clear, like, hey, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, I would suggest my invitation would be no more than a year, so that it's like meaty, it's there in front of you, right? 12 years, that's too far off.
Yeah.
A year, 6 months, 3 months. And to really, would it serve you to have like a clear, this would be a quantum leap result that you're committed to declare something like that?
Yes, definitely. I
Cool.
went into trying to think of what it would be so that I got lost in answering the question, but absolutely. Yeah, it would help to have it really clear.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I think that would be a great practice to like sit down and really, what I notice how much more accessible you feel when you slow down. And I imagine you might feel more accessible to yourself too. And of course, slowing down and looking at this stuff and declaring a result, like you and I are similar this way. I'm like, this isn't moving shit forward. And I'm like, I got to go and do all the work and take on all the stuff and be on all the calls. And it's like, wait, why am I doing this? I don't know yet. I haven't created what I'm going towards. So really to slow down and be like, what's the result that, like, if I was just to create a quantum leap over the next 6 months, what would the thing I would be committed to? And it might be as simple as just looking at good, better, best and be like, it's the best. That would be the quantum leap. And then really to like sweep good and better off the table and be like, great, how am I going to create this? What am I going to have to do? That then would provide, I think, a reason why, I got to delegate. I got to confront that shit that's getting in the way because I can't create this goal any other way.
Yeah.
I have a few more practices, but is there anything else showing up for you?
Nope. I would love to hear your other practices.
Cool. So one, I would invite you as to practice to just be in the practice of noticing when you're talking conceptually versus like, but what towards? And that can also be like when it's like, oh, here's the stuff I should do. And just to bring in back to like, yeah, but what am I moving toward? Like, what for am I doing this? And is the what for a concept or a tangible thing you're moving towards?
Yeah.
And that's going to like kind of, one of the things I noticed about you, Sandra, is you are possibility incarnate. Like you just are a fountain. You're kind of like, oh my God, I'm not surprised that it's like, fuck, because it's infinite and you'll never be able to express all of that in the world. And that will create a degree of heartbreak. And what that'll do is it'll allow you to take the possibility you are and ground it on this planet and move towards it and manifest more that way. Do you think that would serve you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. The final thing you might take on is to look with your clients and see like, hey, what are we actually committed to? And are these results we're reliable to generate? They might take something. We might have to work a bit harder, do a bit more, but will they require a breakthrough to generate? Or are they kind of like, nah, we just got to do a little bit more and we'll get there. And you might just get curious with them because as you're taking this on, you know, if it's showing up over here, it might be showing up over there too.
Totally.
Yeah. Cool. How's that feel?
Feels great.
Your energy feels really lovely and soft right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also just kind of savoring how lovely it feels to be on this side of the table, so to speak. Like, and it's, I mean, I love that this is live on Facebook too. Like I just, I'm such a vulnerability junkie and it feels so good to me to be willing to share. I mean, it would be just as fun if it was just you and me, but I love that, you know, maybe somebody else sees this and gets inspired or learns one thing from our conversation. And it's the kind of like, that's one of the things that makes me feel the most alive is having meaningful conversations, is digging into like either witnessing vulnerability or being the one being vulnerable. Like I definitely feel most alive when I'm being like vulnerable / like towing the edges a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I just really appreciate the opportunity to sit here too and to be seen and to be supported and to like philosophize and reach, but also to bring it down, like you were saying, to ground it down into a little bit more like of a tangible, because I could sit around for the next 10 years and be like, what is a quantum leap going to look like? And then not actually doing anything about it. So it feels
what do
good.
Words mean?
Yeah.
He was a funny letter. That's like what it's like in my head all the time. I want to finish by acknowledging you and then we'll do a little bit of a debrief. Is there anything for you to have the conversation be complete?
No, yes, I'm giving myself the homework to sit down and get really clear on what that thing that I'm aiming towards is, and decide on it and commit to it, and to
Love
not
it.
like, I love the philosophizing, and I will continue to do so, because that's just like you said, I am possibility. I live in the vision space, but I do really want to decide and commit so that I can show up differently every day
Beautiful.
in service of that commitment.
Thanks for making that declaration. By when will you have created that for yourself, like that goal?
Before September 1st, because I love endings of things and beginnings of things.
Nice. Thanks for creating a time box there too. Really acknowledge that. So Sandra, I really, I so acknowledge the possibility you are. And I often, one of the things I'm present to when people just innately are, like, part of the essence of who they are is possibility, is like every gift brings with it like a corresponding flavor of fear. And I'm often present to how possibilities fear is like, it won't get done. Like, all of this is available, and it's not all going to happen, which is on one hand kind of an impossible problem, right? Because it's like, how do I manifest the infinite in a finite amount of time? And learning to be with that tension is often part of the breakthrough for people on the path of possibility. It's like, yeah, there is going to be a bit of a heartbreak, because I'll always see more available for myself, for other people. And in being able to be with that, then it doesn't have to be like, then we don't have to try to get it all done. The way a coach gave this to me was, I was complaining. I was like, there's so many emails and I can never get on top of them. It's like, there's an infinite number. And he was like, yeah, there are. There's literally an infinite number of emails. You'll never get to the bottom of it. You're always going to have more people you could serve, Adam. And if you can stop relating to it like it's a thing you'll get done, and start relating to it as that, then you can change who you be about it. And I was like, well, fuck you for being right and for not giving me a magic silver bullet to get all the emails done. So I really acknowledge you for the possibility, and whether or not that flavor is true for you, or whatever flavor is there, I acknowledge that it's not free to have that gift. I really acknowledge you for your radiance, Sandra. You just look like glowing throughout this whole conversation. And now that I've opened the window, I look kind of like gray. So I'm a little jealous of how well you look colored. But there's a real like shiny, like your radiance coupled with the possibility you are. I can just imagine what it must be like sitting in the rays of the sunshine for the people that get the gift of working with you. So thanks for giving them that. And finally, I really acknowledge you for your commitment to be your work, as opposed to just talk about it, and like your willingness to be here in this conversation, and to like see this stuff, instead of to like, do that sophisticated end run we can do as coaches where we're like, oh yeah, I get that. But also, and then it's like safe, to instead really be in the like, yeah, maybe I don't have the commitment that I thought I did towards that thing. And maybe I'll take that on. Yeah. Beautiful work.
Thank you.
So let's do just a quick debrief, and I'll start this time by saying that one thing I realized right out of the gate is I didn't. There was a place where I was like, I didn't model us starting out this way, because I didn't get clear, like, where did you want to be by the end of this call, which might have been a place where we could sort of like practice it in the moment. So I was present to that. Anything that you were present to, or that showed up for you that you were surprised by, or just like, interesting?
What's coming for me is I'm just kind of like I'm present to the fact that my cheeks are hurting because I'm smiling a lot, which is something that's been happening a lot lately. I've found myself commenting that, like on calls with clients and stuff, which is a great problem to have, because I'm like,
yes,
it hurts that I feel so happy, but I'm just really savoring, like, what I'm present to is how much I love these types of conversations, regardless of context. Like, this is what I want so much more of, and I'm doing my best to create more of that in my life, like outside of my work, and with my friends and with family, and wherever I can. I was a little harder right now, but virtual, yay. But it just it expands my heart so much to be in, like, I'm also such an eye contact person, but like to be in this place of like presence and deep listening and conversations about shit that I think is really cool and amazing, and the weather and sports or whatever. No offense to the weather or to sports, because both are lovely, but it's just really meaningful to me, and I value it a lot. So I've enjoyed this process a ton.
Yeah, it's really sacred, that we get to have these conversations, that we get to put them into the world. And I know there's some people that are, they're like, I don't like any other conversation but this kind of one. And that's not true for me. I love talking about Magic the Gathering, or like, I don't know, whatever there is to complain about. Like, that part of me exists too. And we're weighted in that direction. And like, it's rare that we get to have conversations for transformation like this way. And I'm so grateful that you and I live in a time where there's, until this stuff's distinguished, we can't really focus on it, because it's just part of, it's like, oh, that was a cool conversation, as opposed to like, oh, now we can say, oh, that was a transformative conversation. What made it transformative? What blah, blah, blah. And I'm so grateful that we live in a time where people like Werner Erhard and Alan Watts and so on have kind of carved this out. So now you and I get to be like, fuck yeah, we're going to lean into that and have those sort of conversations. It's super rich for me as well. Cool. Okay. Well, let me just check in if there's anything I want to share before we go. Where, if people want to know more about your work, if they want to follow and get an experience of your art, or if they're just like, hey, can we get into a conversation? Where's the best place for them to do that?
So I usually just say, just Google my name, because Sandra Possing, it's the same everywhere. SANDRA POSSING. My website is sandrapossing.com. It's same on Facebook, IG, all the places, Twitter, LinkedIn. Haven't quite made it to TikTok yet, but I would say I'm most present on Facebook and Instagram are my main platforms. Nice. YouTube is coming. It's like in the baby stage right now. Like, I love doing video. And I know that for me, that's going to be a big part of my output and content in the future. It's part of the quantum leap that I imagine that'll be one of the main channels.
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool. And is there anything like you're excited that you're like putting into the world right now? Like anything you're launching or that's just awesome that you want people to know about?
Yeah, the thing I'm most excited about right now is my 12-month mastermind called Unshakable for women. And it's kind of like the closest thing to like the tangible expression of my soul in a program that I could create, at least at this point in time in my own evolution. It's the third year that I'm running it, and it's evolved a lot over time, but it is, it's kind of like my heart and soul, and a lot of really amazing ladies in there, very supportive, very like-minded. Everyone's on some sort of a path to developing unshakable self-belief. That's why we call it Unshakable. Love and it. We're tackling all kinds of different life situations with people, but always through that lens of like radical self-care and deep self-love and fierce leadership, always coming from the inside out. And that's just for me, it's a very sacred container to support people in. And I think so much of what's the quote? I always forget who it is. Truman. It's the quote that's like, the world needs people that have come alive. Mm-hmm. What the world needs is people who have come alive. So I always kind of change that into my own version, which is what the world needs right now most is women who have come alive. And for women to wake up to their own power and to be able to go out and be in their power and express that and speak their truth. A lot of the women I work with, it's about even finding their voice in the first place. Totally. And getting their voice out there, speaking their truth, setting boundaries, and like really standing fiercely in who they are, and authenticity, creating alignment in their lives and stepping into leadership, all that stuff. So I love it. It's really, really very fulfilling work. And
when does that start?
It's an ongoing program. So people
can join whenever.
It's a 1-year commitment. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Everyone, thanks for being with us today. Thanks, Mia, Heather, M, as she's going by, and everyone else watching us after the fact. And we'll see you all next Friday. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And then what do? I go...